Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Moetivation, the show where we dive headfirst into the most amazing minds. And that is exactly what my guest is today. Those of you who watched football in the early 90s will remember him as a center back of epic proportions, playing for the likes of Dynamos, Orlando Pirates. What a wonderful career he had. Through his life, he has gone through depression, anger, temper issues, hearing problems, a lot of adversity, but he's come out of that adversity. He's written it for us in a book, shared his wisdom with us, and it gives me such a great honor to introduce to you Mr. Gora Ebrahim. Assalamu alaikum, Gora. How are you?
Walaikum salam, Mo. I'm very good, thanks. And before I say anything, I should like to thank you for having me on the show. It's a privilege for me to be here.
It's such a pleasure to have you here. You truly have been an inspiration to me. I remember being 10 years old, standing on that grounds, watching you command the defense. I was a goalkeeper and I had a passion for defending. And watching you, it was an absolute honor. And then our paths crossed many years down the line again. And I hear your inspirational story. And what an inspiration it was. First of all, tell me, Gora, who are you and what is your mission?
Well, if I just have to, it's very simple and actually not very complicating. I'm from Vereeniging originally. I hail from a family whose dad started or was one of the founder members of Vereeniging Old Boys. My family, the Bellishes, as we've come to be known in Vereeniging, pioneers of Roshni, of top location. And just a couple of months ago, we released the pictorial history of Vereeniging after 55 years, which was very well done by Mr. Yunus Chamda. And I think it's an unprecedented book. And in that book, we speak about the history of my family and my mom's family, where we come from in Vereeniging. So very, very simple, very proud to be from Vereeniging. And obviously in the good old days, there wasn't much to do in terms of sport. It was academics and sport, and football consumed me. And I've been very fortunate in the years to be able to play for some wonderful soccer teams, and then left home eventually to fulfill my dreams of playing at the highest level, thanks to teams like Vereeniging Old Boys and Swaraj, Bluebells, and then Dynamos, and eventually to the very pinnacle when I got to Orlando Pirates. So that's basically me, and I'm also a very strong. I suppose many people regard me as an academic, and many other people will think of me as a soccer player, but I have sort of married my academics with football, and basically they've intertwined and crisscrossed over the many years as I made my journey to where I am right now. And obviously it hasn't been a very smooth journey. There's been trials, there's been tribulations, there's been a lot of heartache, but there's been a lot of joy as well. So I try to capture them in that book, and I hope that whoever reads it will be able to get a glimpse of who I really am.
I'm sure as soon as they read it, they'll get a complete glimpse of who you are, what your mission is. They'll feel it, especially the way you talk about it. You're so passionate about getting this message across. How important is adversity in growth in your life? How important was it to you? And how important is it to our viewers to understand that if you're going through something, you can grow through it?
Yeah, so there's adversity in every corner of our lives. Nothing really runs smooth. Happiness can sometimes be very elusive to many of us. Sometimes we don't understand what actual happiness is. To many of us, happiness is chasing material things, trying to obtain, trying to get a lot of things. But as you grow older, you realize that as you acquire things in life, It may have just complicated a lot of things that you wanted to do. So as you get older, you just sort of get rid of them. You start shedding. You start try to unclutter the mind of all the things that shouldn't be there. Um, and that's what happened to me. Adversity, yes. I come from a background or where things weren't very easy. In the good old days, we grew up in the apartheid days, and at the time when I was growing up, there wasn't many opportunities to do much, especially as an academic. There wasn't much opportunity to go to university or get a tertiary education. So I ended up going to college, and that is where I really understood my purpose, I suppose. And lot of people or a lot of students who shared a similar background like me, it when I say adversity at that time, it wasn't adverse at that time. It was just difficult, and we had a lot of challenges. But as we grew up, and as I strove to get to the very top, and that was when things became really tough, and I suppose adversity struck. But I think we can we can take adversity and we can turn it to our advantage, and maybe it can become serendipity. We take that adversity and we turn it into something of an advantage, and of course, you see a different joy. I think I've been able to do that over the years with the blessing of my creator, with the support of my family, my wife especially, and my children at home. I was over I was able to overcome that adversity and make something of it in an inspirational way, firstly to myself and then to everyone close to me, and hopefully now to a larger audience, to a larger crowd of people, hopefully.
You know, we talk about adversity, and of course, I don't think anything is a bigger adversity than losing one of our senses. You
Absolutely.
have loss of your hearing, or you
Yeah.
have difficulty hearing, if I can put it in better terms. Surely that was impactful to your life.
Yeah.
When did it happen? How did it change you? And how did it change the mindset to get around something so huge?
Yes, I, 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 I grappled with the loss of hearing for many years. So, like many people, we don't um, appreciate the difficulty that we're going through until we become embarrassed about it, until people start drawing to our attention what is actually happening. So I had this loss of hearing and I tried to cope with it for many years. And then when I'm at my school about 12 years ago, and I'm sitting in the staff room, and my principal's walking around. And at Baklu Primary School, I had a wonderful principal, Mrs. Charlotte Struvich. And Charlotte and I had this way of conversing with each other. We're in the staff meetings, and the others loved it. And we both were very fluent in Afrikaans. She's Afrikaans. I speak Afrikaans very well. And in that meeting, she walks around and she says something which I completely don't get. And everybody goes quiet and they're all looking at me. And I realize that I've been spoken to and I didn't hear it. And Charlotte's word, Gora kan jy my nie hoor nie. And I realized at that moment, of course, everybody just broke out into laughter. But I didn't find that moment as funny as everyone else. I realized then that I needed help. So I go to Shanas Kachalia the very same afternoon, my audiologist, and we go through the motions or we go through the tests. And I discover that my left ear, I have a hearing loss of 40%, in the right ear, 60%. Now, what Shana says to me is, Gora, or Mr. Ibrahim, as she said, you must have been really knocked really, really hard at the back of your head, close to concussion. And I said, and I just laughed and I said, Shanaz, we as footballers, we get knocked all of the time.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut you just short on that story, but we'll be right back after the break to understand how difficult it is to get through adversity, yet on the other side of adversity, there is growth. And we'll see you on the other side of this ad break. Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Motivation. Just before the break, we were speaking to Mr. Gora Ebrahim about adversity, about how he lost his hearing and how he got through that. Gora, so you in this moment, you in that boardroom, you can't hear a thing, you go to your audiologist, she tells you you could have gotten a concussion, which is how you would have lost your hearing. What do you feel in that moment?
Well, it's quite scary because there's no way that the hearing is going to get any better. So Shanaz says to me that the damage to the ears, to the eardrums, has been is so bad that surgery is not going to help us. So that I've got to wear, of course, hearing devices, which I wear now pretty much all the time. I just took it off and everything just went very, very quiet. I'll put them on right now. It's like, wow, it's magical. It's just like you're switching on the volume, or you're turning on the TV or something, and now you can hear. But before I say anything, I'll just say that no matter what, these devices, this is the latest technology, it cannot replicate the ear. It does not replicate the ear. In the best of moments, I still lose a lot of what an ordinary person can hear, and I can't. But Shanaz doesn't just give me this. She also goes through the process of the way my life is going to change, because I wear them pretty much all of the time. I need to adjust to them. And by the time I take them off in the evening before I go to bed, I'm tired. And sometimes I develop headaches. Sometimes all the time in a crowd of people, I don't usually pick up the person in front of me. I pick up the background noise around me. So I need to concentrate really, really hard on the person in front of me. And just to give you an example of real trauma, of a real trauma situation, something that was really difficult was during the COVID period, where everyone had put face masks on. I couldn't see their mouths move. And a lot of them spoke into the masks. And of course, I was out of many conversations.
Wow.
So sometimes people take it for granted for what they have. It is, of course, what we say, one of our nahmats. We don't take it for granted. When you have it, you look after it.
How important is gratitude?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The way the way you respond or react to a difficult situation is what is going to define how you're going to live with it and how you're going to interact with everyone else. I think the attitude is absolutely important.
That's fantastic to know that you've been through this, yet you were so grateful. And I'm sure now even more grateful for other aspects of your life, knowing what it is to lose such an important aspect of your life.
Yes, absolutely, Mo. I don't hear very well. When I was a professional footballer, that was one of my strengths, was my hearing. And it's very, and I grapple to understand when I lost my hearing. Because when I was a footballer playing in the middle of the park, without having to watch where the player behind me is, I could feel, I could sense, I knew where I was in the park. And if someone would run past me on the left or right, they would just scream my name and I'd hear them and adjust, and the pass would go. I play football now. I still play, believe it or not, with in the Masters League. If you come from my left hand side, I hear nothing. I will not sense you. I will not hear anything. I've got to depend on my periphery. On my right hand side, it's a little better. So that is something that footballers cannot take for granted. because it assists so much.
Do you think it was the constant impacts of hitting the ball, of falling, of getting a headshot that caused this in the long run?
No, I believe, Mo, it was it was trauma to the back of the head, either an elbow or a clash of heads, but it must have been so severe that I must have been concussed. But I believe I was concussed a few times already. But according to Shanaz, my audiologist, it must have been one hell of a blow to the back of the head.
If you could do it all over again, and I know the book's title is No Regrets, which is fantastic, but if you could do it all over again, would you change it?
I wouldn't change anything. I am so grateful for all the things that I have. I cannot thank my Creator, the Almighty, enough for the things that He's given us, for the things He's given me. I sometimes feel that I'm sitting on this conveyor belt, and it's moving, and I'm sitting with all my belongings on it, and I've got my family behind me, and we really have no control because He has got control about the things. Yes, my attitude is right. I put things out there, but ultimately He decides my path. And that's how I really feel. And my wife, Munira, often tells me, you're very fortunate to have lived such a full life. And that's what my children always say too. Never really afraid of taking a chance, never afraid of taking a risk, irrespective of what the consequences could be. But He's always looked out for me. And the fact that I'm still standing here right now fills me with a sense of gratitude.
Having faith is the most important thing in life. What do you think?
I have very strong conviction
Yes.
in my Creator. And as I said in our live stream at my launch on Saturday, I say I feel very guilty that very often I do not pray as often as I can. As you know, it's obligatory for us to pray 5 times a day. I don't, because of work, because of all sorts of things. And sometimes, and I'll honestly say it, because I'm just plain lazy. And I pray that the Almighty will make it so that one day I will see the importance, or I'll know the importance. I need to feel the importance of supplicating to Him more often. But having said that, I have a very personal relationship with my Creator. It is a relationship that I do not ask others to define for me, because I have it with Him. And in my relationship, my conviction is absolutely strong. I don't believe that I need to go through the rituals to make it any stronger, but hopefully, if I do everything else, maybe it will become stronger. But feel very, very strongly that He is looking out for me, and perhaps I should maybe feel more grateful. I'm very, very grateful, and I'm very, very. I feel He's looked after us. He's put His wing over us, this wing of protection over me and my family. I really cannot ask more. Perhaps I should do more.
I can hear the emotion inside of you. Our viewers will be able to hear the emotion inside of you. This is something you truly, truly feel from deep within you. And I hope our viewers can understand that in terms of gratitude, it's so important. So important to be grateful. And most importantly, to be grateful to the one who has bestowed all of this upon us. It's so important to be grateful to our Creator, because He is the one who is in control of everything. I love your analogy of the conveyor belt, and we are just sitting there with a positive attitude. Having that attitude is what gets us through life. We cannot go in this despair attitude, this depressed attitude, this negative attitude, because all it's going to do is just flood us with all of those negative emotions, which is going to bring us down to the ground, and we will not be able to see what we have. I was around the age where I first saw you play on the soccer field that I read a quote that said, "The good life starts when you stop wanting a better one." And the day we stop wanting a better life is the day we will appreciate every single thing that we have within us. So you have the hearing problem. Another major issue in your life was your temper.
Yeah.
And your temper cost you your football career at some point. Why do you feel that you've had this temper? And if time permits, we can get through the temper issue. And if not, we will continue it on next week's show. But why do you feel that this temper was inside? Was it something from your childhood that you did not deal with? Was it something that the ego took over and you thought that I was better than everyone else? What was the reason that this temper kept on triggering inside of you?
I think more than anything else, I've always played with with a sense of pride and knowing that I had the talent, that I had the ability to really affect the game the way it should be, to the benefit of my team. And sometimes, and more often than not, I used to get it right, and sometimes I didn't. And I think that was more when the ego kicked in, if you like. But it wasn't that bad. I didn't really have a temper issue as I grew up over the years. I think I was very aggressive when I needed to be, not aggressive as because that was how I was, but aggressive more because that was a strategy that I used to put into place when things weren't going right, sometimes overly so, and sometimes I needed to be reined in, especially when I was in that moment and I realized what was on the line. So some people will say that, there were times when Gora seemed like he was about to go out of control. But
I want to leave you on that moment.
Okay.
And I want to leave our viewers on that moment. Gora Ebrahim about to go out of control, his ego getting the better of him. How do you get that in check? How do you keep that in check? We'll wait till next week to find that out. I know everyone is looking forward to understanding how did Mr. Gora Ebrahim get his ego in check, get his temper in check, calm everything down, and become the wonderful, amazing, inspirational, motivational individual that he has become today. Remember, it is not your situation that defines you, but it is your reaction to that situation. This is motivation, and let me motivate you.